The last topic in this section is the midpoint formula. The midpoint between 2 points, x1 comma y1 and x2 comma y2, is another point. So here we have a coordinate with a comma, and the first part of the coordinate is the average of the two x coordinates. So we add x1 and x2 and then divide by 2. And the y-coordinate of the midpoint is halfway between the y-coordinates. So we'll average those. So we have y1 plus y2 and then divided by 2. So for example, let's plot the points 1/2 comma 2/3 and 7/4 comma 7/3 and then find the point halfway between them. In other words, the midpoint. Now I realize we have some fractions here. That's okay. We can just kind of estimate plotting them. So let's just draw a set of axes here. Nope, and I actually only need the first quadrant because everything here is positive. So I'm just going to make that bigger so that we can, have a better picture. Okay, my x's I got 1/2 and 7/4. 7/4 is between 1 and 2. 4/4 would be 1 and 8/4 would be 2. So I'm just going to go out to 2 here. Then on the y-axis, our smallest value is 2/3 and our biggest value is 7/3. 7/3 is between 2 and 3 because 6/3 would be 2 and 9/3 would be 3. So I'm just going to go up to 3 on the y-axis. And I'll just kind of eyeball a third to make my 1 and 2 tick marks. Okay, now to plot 1/2 comma 2/3, we'll just estimate. So let's say 1/2 is halfway to 1, and then 2/3 would be 2/3 of the way to 1. So it'll be somewhere around here. I'll just label that. So 1/2 comma 2/3. Okay, our second point here is 7/4 comma 7/3. All right, so again, if you want to get a decimal approximation for this in your calculator, feel free. But 7/4 is almost 8/4, which is 2. It's actually 1/4 below 2. So I'm going to go on the x-axis to about a quarter less than 2 here. And then 7/3 is between 2 and 3. It's actually 1/3 above 6/3, which is 2. So I'll go a third of the way above 2. So that'll be somewhere around here-ish. And so this point here is 7/4 comma 7/3. Now, if we were going to kind of think about connecting these with a line, we're not looking for the length of this line, but we're looking for the point that's halfway. So we're looking for the midpoint. So that would be somewhere around here. That would be the midpoint. We're looking for the location. Now, again, it's halfway between the x's and then halfway between the y's. So that's the location of the midpoint. So what we're going to do is set up our formula. X1 is 1/2 and x2 is 7/4. So we'll have 1/2 plus 7/4, and then we'll divide that by 2. Then we have comma, the y-coordinate, here's y1, 2/3, here's y2, 7/3. So we will add 2/3 plus 7/3, divide that by 2, and there is the y-coordinate of the midpoint. Now we just have to simplify this. So when you have a complex fraction like we've got here and here, let's first kind of add these numerators together, or the fractions in the numerator. So we do need a common denominator. So I'm going to do 2 times 2, or 2 over 2 times the 1/2. So then that will give me 2 over 4 plus 7 over 4. And that's all divided by 2. Our y-coordinate here in the numerator already has common denominator, so we can just add the 7/3 and the 2/3. So 2 plus 7 is 9, and then we keep our common denominator. So it'll be 9/3. Well, let's just keep on going. So let's do 2/4 plus 7/4. That is equal to 9/4. That's all divided by 2. 9 over 3, that's just 3. So we'll simplify that numerator. Then we've got 2 in the bottom. And then lastly, still a complex fraction. So let's do the whole keep, change, flip thing, or multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator. So we're going to think of this 2 as being over 1. And so what that'll give us is 9 over 4 times 1 over 2. Nothing more to do with that y coordinate there. And then we can just figure out what this product of these two fractions is. So we'll multiply across the numerators, that's 9, and across the denominators, that's 8. So it'll be 9 over 8, comma, 3 over 2. Now let's go back to our picture and just see if this location makes some kind of sense. So 9 over 8 is a little bit more than 8 over 8, which is 1. Okay, so that looks about right. I mean, we don't have a nice exact graph here, but it is in the right general area. And then 3 over 2, that's 1.5. And it looks like our y value is actually, that's pretty good based on our graph. So our midpoint here location is 9 over 8, comma, 3 over 2. In example 2, we have a situation where midpoint might be sort of useful in the real world. I know that's something that some of us always wonder, like when will I ever use this? But midpoints can be used to kind of give an estimate of things when you don't necessarily have all the information. So for example, Starbucks had annual sales of $4.08 billion in 2003 and $6.37 billion in 2005. So without knowing any additional information about what might have happened in between, what would you estimate the 2004 sales to have been? Okay, so let's draw a picture. Again, we only need positive axes here. We only need the first quadrant. We could label these X and Y, but since this is a applied situation, we do want to probably label our axes with units. So let's say that this is time on the bottom, and then sales on the vertical axis, or money. We're not going to go, we are going to go from 2003 and 2005 and then look in the middle, but we're not going to start at 0. So the way that we indicate this on our axes here is by drawing this symbol to show that we are kind of missing out some parts that aren't relevant to our graph. I'm just going to draw, let's do 2003, let's put 2004, and then 2005. And we know in 2003, we've got 4.08 billion, and then we go up to 6.37. So we can even keep starting at 0 on our y scale, and let's just go up to maybe 7. So say this is in billions, and so maybe 3 might be around here. Then we've got 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2. And maybe we should indicate on our axes here that this is in billions of dollars, just so that we know, everyone knows what these things are measured in. Now in 2003, we had 4.08, so I'm just gonna, so 2003, let's just say around 4. Then in 2005, we have 6.37, so we'll go up to, I don't know, a little bit between 6 and 7, so there's that. Now you would expect that the sales just kind of climbed like this. Maybe probably didn't do something like this or like that, but I mean maybe, but we don't know right now. So assuming that it followed this general uphill trend here, the sales in 2004 would be the midpoint approximately between these 2 points here. All right, so that would be a good estimation. So let's find what the midpoint is. So our coordinates now, they're not exactly given to us in an ordered pair. So the time is our x's. So let's call 2003 as x1. And the y value that goes with that is the 4.08, so that'll be y1. The x2 will be 2005, and the y2 will be 6.37. So the midpoint, for our x's should be 2004, but let's just see using the formula that will add those together, divide by 2. Then we will average the y value. So we'll add 6.37 and 4.08. Doesn't matter the order. I think I'm using that backwards, but we're adding, so any order is okay. We'll divide that by 2. Now, if you add 2003 and 2005 and then divide that by 2, you will in fact get 2004. And if you add 6.37 plus 4.08, and you divide that by 2, you should get 5.225. So this is what we're looking for. A good approximation for the sales in 2004 would be about $5.225 billion.